But anyway, thanks for joining us tonight, guys. We're gonna be talking about um, all the other aspects of training that we need to basically focus on, right? Because a lot of people, what you see on a lot of Instagram and a lot of social media is, and really just a lot of classes these days, is everything that has to do with the 1%. And by the 1%, I mean, drawing that gun and then taking shots, right? Think about everything that happens before that. Before you ever have to brandish that firearm and engage, think about all. So that's why we're saying we're calling it the 99%, the other 99%, right? So what is it? What does that 99% include? Well, and this is, not everything that it includes, but some of the major things that the 99% of training should include is one, situational awareness, medical training, physical fitness is important. Some verbal de-escalation is important. And we're going to talk about all these, right? And the other two main ones is hand to hand or some kind of like martial arts that allows you to do some just very basic stuff, right? We're not trying to be like Jackie Chan or anything, but we just at least want to know like how to get out of some holds, or if people put your hands on you, how to like break that, and create distance. And then the last thing that we want to be able to train on is blanking out. What's the last thing, guys? Help me out. Of course, they won't help me out. So, but the last thing that we want to, so we're going to talk about all of these in detail because they're all important, and we're gonna talk about why these matter, because what happened up to the point where you had to brandish that firearm and take shots, like what other things could you have done? What other measures could you have taken? And so that's what we want to talk about in this live session. Oh, the last thing is just some basic tactical training, right? We're not trying to be like super, Jason Bourne types or super soldiers, but we just need a little bit of basic tactical knowledge that'll help us, kind of gain the advantage or better assess the situation or just better handle the situation. So these are the things that we're going to talk about. Damon, do you have audio? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you guys on Discord now. Before I couldn't.
Okay.
And I can see you guys as well. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, your audio is fine. And then Lawrence, your audio is a little weird. So.
Sorry, is that better?
Yeah, much better. Okay, so let's get into it, guys. So obviously, again, if you only want to train guns, then, well, you can take classes all over the country, right? You can come to our classes too. You can watch YouTube videos. You can watch Instagram videos. When it comes to gun training, it's everywhere. It's everywhere, right? But with that, you have all kinds of people trying to teach it. So, you got to do some due diligence and vet your instructors. And so, who's this? Let me hang on one second. Okay, that guy's removed. I had to remove this little spammer. So again, but like vet your instructors, vet these training companies, just because they have a big following on social media. You see how social media is going these days. Just because you have a big following, that doesn't mean shit, right? People are getting exposed for stolen valor. There's instructors that are getting exposed for saying they're special forces, they're this, they're that. And they got like 30, 40,000 followers. So it's only a matter of time. But what you need to do is just vet your instructors. But let's get into some of the other things that we need to pay attention to. So the first one in general is just situational awareness. Situational awareness is obviously very important, right? There's a lot that goes into it, and we're just gonna kind of scrape the surface. Chandler, you want to start us off on like just some talking points for situational awareness, and like how do you utilize situational awareness when you're out and about?
I mean, to me, it's always weird to explain because it seems so like self-explanatory, but it's really not. There's Damon. There he is.
Hey, all right, go ahead.
I mean, situational awareness is just like it doesn't have to be this hyper vigilance that I feel like everybody thinks. Like when I hang out with like my friends who aren't really necessarily a part of like this sort of group, I was like, why you're always looking around and you look like you're like, to them it seems like I'm paranoid. It's not like that at all. It's just as the situation develops around you, as cars pull in, if you're at a gas station, it's always a great example. As cars pull in and cars leave, look up from your phone for half a second, literally half a second, and look at the new car coming in. Is it a shitty looking car? Do the people in the vehicle look suspicious? You're not going to say anything, but you're going to not like leave yourself vulnerable. And like that's, to me, that's like the biggest part of situational awareness is don't leave yourself vulnerable. And if we get trapped in being vulnerable because we are obsessed with our phones,
Yeah.
that's literally what it is. We're always just buried in our phones. And that's bad for a multitude of reasons. Like especially if you're with your kids and you're just buried in your phone, like you're not paying attention to your kids in general, where they're going, walking out into the middle of the street. I mean, you're not bonding with your kids either, really, but like just take your head out of your phone for 5 seconds and look around you. That's literally all situational awareness is. And then like the sooner you see something, the more time you have to react to it and make a plan in your head for how you're going to execute getting away from that person or um, getting back into your car or moving around or finding an alternate route, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's literally just paying attention and not getting sucked in by your phone because it's almost always your phone, unless it's just like a ridiculously beautiful woman or something like that, and you just can't take your eyes off of her. Like it's your phone. Take your excuse my
That's,
French, but take your fucking eyes off your phone for like 5 seconds.
yeah, that's true. I mean, there's definitely a lot of distractions in our lives, right? If it's not your kids, it could be your wife, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your husband. If it's not your significant other, it could be just the overall environment, the amount of foot traffic, the cars that are going by. So really, there's a lot. There's a lot of distractors, right? But we can't let any of those one things like kind of give us that tunnel vision or that hard kind of target fixated, thing where we're just not looking around. Um, Damon, what about you, man? How do you utilize situational awareness in your daily life?
Um, I mean, it's a lot of stuff that Chandler was saying as well. Is it's really just paying attention to your surroundings, and there's a kind of a fine line almost between obviously being paranoid and thinking that something is always going to happen versus just being prepared just in case something does come up. And what you're looking for too is you sort of go into an area. What I try to do is at whatever the baseline is. If it's an area that I've already visited quite often, you already know what the baseline is. Like what is everybody doing there? How does everybody dress? What is everybody's behaviors? What can you expect from these people in that given amount of time? When you start noticing the slight difference, what we're looking for is um, I got a brain fart. There's a term I always use to call it. Oh, you're looking for the anomaly. When you find the anomaly, then that's when you start focusing on that. And so, is this a potential pre-incident indicator? To pay a little bit more attention to this person, and if I think something is about to happen, and for everyday normal use stuff, I know that something that we can apply more to while we're driving is, and it's not always like looking for the next active shooter or whatever it is, but just even when you're driving around and you're coming to a red light, I can look at the intersection and know who's going to stop and who is going to blow past that red light. And there have been quite a few times where I was getting ready to approach a red light, or I would stop at a red light and then I would get a left turning arrow and I would look across the way, know from this vehicle that he's speeding way too fast. This guy probably did not see red light. And sure enough, I just, instead of taking the left like I'm supposed to, held onto the brake and waited, and then the guy ended up blowing right past the red light. And now I know that if I had gone like I normally would have T-boned me. So
Yeah.
for things like that, it's just really paying attention and thinking like, is there a possibility that this person might do something they're not supposed to? So as far as looking at people, like I said again, going back to finding that anomaly out of the normal baseline is what really helps you figure out whether or not you need to pay attention to what's going on here, or saying, you know what, that's totally fine. I'm not going to pay attention to this. I can go back to doing what I was doing.
Let me, what I should have done, Lawrence. I'm going to get to you here in a second, so think of your answer. But like, what I should have done was I should have kind of talked about what situational awareness is, guys, and that's my fault. I kind of jumped the gun. But just let me kind of, take it back a couple minutes into and explain SA, right? So when we say SA, situational awareness, a lot of us already kind of use situational awareness in our daily lives. I mean, Damon just brought up a really good example of when he's driving, right? You guys may not think of it as situational awareness, but you do have to pay attention to all the cars that are coming in and around you, in your blind spots, when you're backing out, like Damon said, at an intersection, like if you get a green light and there's a bunch of fast-paced cars, you may want to take a second and look left and right before you go, because there might be that one car that's trying to, beat that red light. But situational awareness is basically just understanding your surroundings. That's all it is. Understanding your immediate surroundings and then looking and scanning ahead to also look for any possible threat indicators, right? So the best way to kind of describe situational awareness is understanding the culture of your environment. I say this all the time, but it's very true. It's very accurate. Every environment that you're in, every location that you're in, has its own culture. We talked about this before, but I'll go ahead and cover it, right? Like if you think about a gas station, what is some of the common actions or occurrences in a gas station, right? You don't have to, you guys don't have to answer, but if you go into a Walmart, what is the norm? What are people doing inside that Walmart, in a theater, in a mall, right? Where else? At a grocery store. What are the common actions in those places? And then once you understand that is you're understanding the culture of that environment. And every location has its own kind of culture. But once you understand the culture, then you know what the normalities are. So if you see anything that sticks out, then now that becomes an abnormality, right? Like for example, if it's July, just like it is now, and I go into a grocery store, everybody's in shorts and t-shirt, but this guy comes in and walk in with a hoodie. He comes in a hoodie, like especially here in Florida, it's hot, it's humid. So what do you have a hoodie on for? If he has his actual hoodie on, right, and he has his hands in his pockets walking around, that's a red flag. That's a not necessarily a threat indicator, but it is an indicator of an abnormality within the culture of that grocery store. Does that make sense? So these are the things that we're looking for. And then once we understand the culture, we understand abnormalities, and abnormalities get our attention. And when they get our attention, we should give it enough attention to have a proper assessment. Like, do I need to actually pay more attention to this guy, or is he just a fucking weirdo? Because there's a lot of those around too, right? You ever been into a Walmart near midnight? Everybody in that store is a weirdo, right? So I just wanted to kind of explain situational awareness, understanding your immediate surroundings, and then scanning ahead and looking for any kind of threat indicators or abnormalities. And so like Chandler said, you got to get out of your phone. You got to stop being so deep into that conversation with that other person. You got to stop letting your kids just completely take all your attention, or your dog, or whatever it is, right? Now, Lawrence is our guest here tonight for this podcast. But, Lawrence, he doesn't know a lot about tactics, but since he's been kind of hanging with us for the last couple of years, he's picked up a thing or two, right? And I'm sure that he utilizes some good situational awareness in his life. Lawrence, you want to tell us, what are some of the things that you kind of have become, a little more sensitive to in your everyday life?
Thanks for the invite. This is a very interesting conversation, because I think you also know that I've had a pretty negative experience, specifically in a gas station, due to situational.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. This is a perfect story. This is the perfect time to tell that story.
But to kind of round it out, but ever since, like you mentioned, just kind of associating with the group and training with you guys, I have kind of tried to pay special attention to since situations where you start to get a little bit mindless, like checking your phone or going to your car, going to your house. I think you put out a great video a year or two ago where you just kind of covered some of these really menial tasks that you start to kind of switch off and just kind of go through the motions. So that video kind of left an impression where I try to be a little bit more aware, like when I turn my back on, the surroundings, when I open my doors or enter my car, or even, get out of a parking lot, checking all the areas in the dark areas, avoiding the dark areas. But beyond that, just kind of, with all the kind of training, martial arts, this tactical training that I try to get in, and just stuff that I do, like motorcycle riding, like Damon mentioned, you do a lot of situational awareness when you're riding because you're just, the danger is real with other vehicles and other drivers and things that just pop out of anywhere. Now more so with like walking my dog, I kind of keep an eye on people that are coming around because I don't know who they are, or what they're going to do, especially with the weirdos that are around the area I live in nowadays with the homeless and transients. But kind of going on from that, I had a really bad gas station experience, and this was my fault, I think, kind of in hindsight, just not being aware and noticing that this kind of like, I don't know, mentally disturbed person like was creeping up on me, and I didn't see them until like they were right next to me, which was really startling because I was just putting the pump away and this guy was like right next to me and easily within striking distance. So it was really very startling. I didn't know what the hell was going to happen. I was just checking his hands the whole time because I thought he's going to stab me, he's going to shoot me, because the first things out of his mouth were, "I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill you." So I was like, "Whoa, what's happening?" So that was like a scenario where I felt like, oh, I switched off. I wasn't paying attention. I didn't see this guy walk up. I didn't even see him in the gas station. Like I didn't notice that he was here, and that was kind of a bad situation that kind of unfortunately escalated later to him and I kind of getting into some issues and him ultimately damaging my car. But that was a really good lesson. So now whenever I go to the gas station, I kind of keep my eye on which pump I want to go to. Certainly kind of mind the hours that I go to the gas station. This was very late at night. I went at like 11 p.m. So I try to avoid, you know, off hours as much as possible now when I go pump gas, and I certainly avoid that gas station just because of the people that were showing up there. But yeah, it's I think situational awareness is like it's more appropriate, I guess, when you have bad experiences. Like you can tell people to be, hey, be mindful. Stop getting absorbed into your phone, or you know, talking to your girlfriend or your friend so involved that you're not seeing what's coming up ahead. But I think once you have that one negative experience, then you start to kind of really take it to mind and pay more attention to it. But until something happens, I think it's really hard to train people to um, follow that kind of paradigm without having some kind of a stimulus or an event that really kind of drives it home. But
Yeah.
definitely, I try to use common sense whenever possible.
Yeah, I mean that was definitely a sticky situation for you, right? That could have been a lot worse. I mean, gas stations are the perfect place. If you guys haven't seen all these videos that come out, I mean, like almost the number one place where these, I don't want to call them criminal encounters, but let's just say they're not the best encounters, right? Are gas stations. So that's why I tell people, like, when you pull into a gas station, you should be scanning ahead, right? Not like in your phone, not nothing. You should be scanning ahead. But let's say as you're pulling in, you are on your phone, you are distracted. That's okay. But when you go to that gas pump, take a second before you get out of your car and just scan around. Just scan your immediate surroundings and scan your, do your 5s and 25s, as I say. Right. And so because if you see shady characters, you can quickly assess, well, this guy is just doing his own thing, or it looks like this guy could be coming towards me. Or, some people get out of their car and there's people on top of them like immediately. Right. So situational awareness in this case could have maybe helped Lawrence had he been kind of scanning and stuff. But, sometimes you got to be a little more reactive because you're not proactive. So then you become reactive. In this case, fortunately for Lawrence, it wasn't as bad as it could have been, right? Because if that guy really wanted to hurt Lawrence, he was probably within striking distance by the time Lawrence even, kind of paid attention or was aware of it. So guys, I mean, this is the stuff that we talk about all the time because it is a daily occurrence. It is a daily occurrence. If it's not happening in your area, I guarantee it's happening somewhere in the country. Statistically, it's going to happen in your area. It's just a matter of time, right? People say, "Oh, that'll never happen to me. That'll never happen to me." Well, one day it just may happen to you. But is it better to be oblivious to this stuff that we're talking about, or is it just better to be prepared? Like, even if it's in the back of your mind, because as soon as something like shady happens and the hair on the back of your neck raises up, what's really happening is your mind is telling you, like, oh, yeah, like you were taught about this, or you were at least informed about this. So, like, let's pay attention to this now, right? Okay. But let's, anything else you guys want to add to situational awareness? I think we're done with that one.
I can actually add something that's a little more specific because some people might be asking or wondering, like, well, what is maybe a better way of scanning the area before entering the when you're trying to pump gas? And generally, what I do is as I'm making the approach, if, let's for example, I'm heading northbound on whatever street, and I know that the gas station is on the right side. Gas stations are generally built on corners. So that means that you've got a 90-degree, angle there on, just how that street and the curve is designed. And so as you later, I don't do this so much during the daytime unless I'm going to a really sketch area. At night, especially if it's late and you just have to pump gas. If one quick bypass, instead of taking the very first entrance into the parking lot, you pass that first one, you make a right turn, and then you take the second one to go into the parking lot. And what that does is it gives you at least like an extra, few seconds to kind of scan as you drive past the gas station. And then when you make a right again, by that point, you're in a way, if you look at CTV, you kind of go into like a point of dominance. You get a chance to scan one side, and then as you make the right turn, you can scan the other side. By that point, if you see something weird, then you just bail and keep going and hopefully find another gas station. Speaking of which, that's why it's also another really good is don't wait until you're getting ready to run almost damn near empty to go pump gas, because then you become desperate and you have no choice but to pick whatever the first one is, even if that means you got to go in a really sketchy area. So
Yeah.
me personally, I try not to let my gas tank go below half a tank, and that sounds freaking absolutely nuts, but that comes from my executive protection job as well. Is that when our clients' cars go below half empty, we always fill the tank. We just don't go below that as much as possible. And so, majority of the times we're not taking these super long road trips. I always make sure that my own personal vehicle is always topped off right as it gets below half. And even on road trips, I do the same thing. If I'm taking a long freaking trip and driving through multiple states, try to plan ahead so that I know that when I need to make a stop, that they're not in really weird sketch areas. But anyway, going back to doing that scan, is you bypass the first entrance, make a second entrance if you can, and then once you pull up to whatever gas tank you want to fill up at, people do, and I watch people do this all the time, is usually what they do is they'll go and they'll put the nozzle into the tank, and then what they do is they'll turn their back to the car and then lean up against the car. Usually they place themselves between the vehicle and the whole like gas, whatever you call that station. And so with that gas station being kind of like pretty close to you, you essentially block off a majority of the view of what's going on right in front of you. And then usually their head is down at that point looking at their cell phones, right? And so they're not only are they looking behind them, but they're also obstructing their view because they're like directly in front of this gas station. So if you need to just stay in one place, then usually what you want to do is at least kind of sort of at least put your back to the gas station, because that's much more narrow, and then you can even stand, because usually the gas station is kind of built on like a little bit of a platform, like a cement platform. So if you stand on top of that, then at least you can look over your car and allow yourself to go ahead and kind of scan around, but not do it so weird that you're head on the swivel thing. I mean, you don't need to do it all intense and crazy. I mean, it could be a really, really casual scan.
Yeah.
I generally like to kind of just walk around the car, to be honest with you. Like, I'll start off by, if at the same time too, is with your gas tank only needing to be filled half, you're not there for a really long friggin' time. I'll usually turn around, I'll put the nozzle into the gas tank, and then, start it. And then I usually kind of just sort of just like to walk around and scan some more. And I'm being really casual about it. I might even like get in my car for a few seconds to kind of look at mirrors and that sort of stuff. And but it's really rare that I've ever really done it where I just start my gas tank, fill, and then I put my back against the car and just put my head down. I never really do it. So there's just too many weird stuff that goes on at gas stations where
Yeah.
I want to get myself buried in there. So I mean it sounds like it's a lot of work, but it really kind of isn't. I feel like it's a really easy thing to do.
Well, it could be a lot of work for somebody who's not accustomed to that kind of lifestyle, right? And so, and we're not telling you guys that you need to start doing all this stuff immediately, because it's overwhelming when you think about it. But if you just start, what's the best way to start? Well, the best way to start is maybe get your head out of your phone every once in a while. If you're sitting down in a restaurant, just pick your head up and see who's coming in, who's going out, who's around you. If you're with your kids or your wife or whoever with another party, just kind of like, without, ignoring them, just kind of take a look around, right? And I mean, just pay attention to your surroundings a little bit. There is no like doctrine on this. There really isn't. There's no doctrine on situational awareness. It's just common sense and logic. Who's around me, who's immediately around me, and then who is kind of, further out, and I should scan. It's the same thing as scanning ahead when you're driving on the highway at 80 miles an hour. You're not looking at the car directly in front of you. I mean, you are, because you obviously want to keep that space, but you're also scanning ahead. You're looking for brake lights. You're looking for, anything that you deem might be dangerous where you have to slow down or change lanes or whatever it is. It's the same concept, but you're just doing it in your personal space, right? All right, so we got to move on. Because obviously with this little 20-minute thing delayed, that we're really behind schedule. But let's talk about verbal de-escalation next. Let's talk about verbal. Why am I echoing? What is going on right now?
Out of nowhere.
Am I echoing for you guys too? That was weird. Okay. Okay, thank you. So let's talk about verbal de-escalation next, because, like Lawrence brought up his example and his incident. But let's talk about whereas if Lawrence had time to talk to this guy, what are some things that we could possibly say to de-escalate the situation verbally, right? We haven't got to the hands-on yet. Let's just talk about two people talking. What is it that people want when they come up to you? Well, I mean, most people that come up to you, they just may want like a couple bucks, or, I don't know, maybe they're asking a question. It depends, I guess, kind of like in the scenario, right? It depends on which scenario you're in. At the gas station, if somebody's walking up to you, more than likely, they probably want something for you. Like, and you can immediately look at them. Like, remember we talked about image projection, right? So when you see a homeless person, he doesn't have to say a word to me. I can immediately look at a homeless person and be like, oh, that guy is homeless, right? I've never seen a homeless person in a freaking Armani suit, right? So when I see a homeless person, I can already tell this person is homeless. So there's only like maybe a few things that this person can ask me. Hey man, can I get some money, or can I get a ride somewhere, or do you mind if can you pay for some gas? My car is stuck or whatever, something like that, right? So when you think about these things, as you're answering, you have to also, as you're trying to, and we haven't quite gotten to verbal de-escalation. I guess we've only really kind of got to the place where we're responding to the initial question, but this person can become hostile. Let's kind of move to a different scenario. Like, what if we're in a bar or a restaurant, right? How many times have you guys been in a bar where you kind of get into this weird thing with somebody else, and then it turns into like this verbal kind of conflict where you guys are like not necessarily yelling at each other, but you know, it looks like some shit can go down. And I use my example all the time. You know, the last time that I almost got into a fight was, I don't know, like 6 years ago, where basically like this guy bumped into me. He spilled some of his beer on my shoe, by the way, right? Well, some of that spills on his shoes too, but like most of it spills on my shoes. But he gets mad at me because he thinks it's my fault that he spilled his beer on my shoes and his shoes. But when he's the one that bumped into me, now I could have, again, if that was like a 20-year-old me, I probably would have taken a different approach because I wasn't as mature, as experienced, and whatever, right? And I probably didn't care if I got in a fight. But as a 30-something in my late 30s, like fighting is just not an option for me. Not an option that I would choose. But if it's chosen for me, then I have to react, obviously, right? So this guy is now talking shit, and I'm thinking to myself, you know, do I take the high ground or do I fucking just tell him to fuck off? Well, so I wanted to not ruin my night because I knew if I told him to fuck off, he's gonna get butthurt, he's gonna puff his chest out, and then I have to react to his fucking immaturity, right? Or whatever his response is gonna be. So I just basically offered him. I was like, hey man, I'm sorry. It's not a big deal. I got some on my shoes too. It was an accident, you know. But he kept on talking shit, and I was like, hey, tell you what, let me go buy you a beer. Let's go over to the bar. I'll buy you a new beer. We'll call it good. I'm not trying to ruin my night. I don't think you're trying to ruin your night. And let's just, you know, so we went over to the bar. I bought him a beer. His demeanor and his tone completely changed, right? Just by my simple gesture. Now, did I give in and act like a little bitch? No, but I think I was pretty adamant that, hey, I don't want to ruin my night. It's like some beer on my shoes is not worth ruining my night or going to jail, right? Or worse, somebody getting hurt. So when we talk about verbal de-escalation, there's always going to be people that rile you up. There's always going to be people that push your buttons. I mean, look at your wife, look at your girlfriend, look at your boyfriend, look at your husband. We know each other so well that we just want to piss each other off. We're just like pushing each other's buttons, right? This is a very real thing. This is a very real thing. So when you guys are like verbal de-escalation, how do I practice that? Well, practice with your significant other, because what relationship doesn't have fights or arguments or disagreements? So next time you get into a disagreement, argument, debate, freaking fight with your significant other or whoever that person is, with your parents, with your family, whoever, practice some verbal de-escalation. There is going to be some times where you're just like, fuck that, fuck off, right? And there's going to be some times where you're like, you know what? I just need to walk away and cool down. But there are going to be some times where you can't walk away, and you shouldn't walk away. You should actually address it. And you should try your best to verbally de-escalate or neutralize the situation, right? And so that just takes some practice, because you don't have to be a public speaker. You don't have to be a professional speaker. You don't have to teach in front of crowds. You just need to be able to talk and just be the mature person and be like, look, let's use some logic here. All this fighting is not getting us anywhere. So let's talk about the actual issue and then address that however we need to. And then fucking, you know, once we're there, then we can fucking hug it out or whatever. So obviously verbal de-escalation, who trains is there training out there for verbal de-escalation? I'm sure there's like some smart, like 3-time PhD doctor out there somewhere that probably does like online seminars and shit. But most of your verbal de-escalation happens in like family counseling, marriage counseling, stuff like that, right? But it's right there in your own home. So you might as well kind of practice that. And you can practice with people too, strangers. Guys, does anybody here have a good story of a time where you had to verbally de-escalate, either with a loved one or just a stranger? I know, Lawrence, with you kind of didn't have a chance, right? Damon, Chandler? Guys, if you're in the audience, for you guys in the audience, that's Chandler. You're the culprit. I don't know why your mic is making me echo. Oh, because you don't have your AirPods on. That's
what. My AirPods on, and my volume's up super loud. Does that make it better?
I mean, yeah, it's just kind of weird here and there.
You talk really loud, man. Such a masculine, booming voice.
No, you're fine. The mic is fine right there. I mean, you
can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay, cool. It's really far away.
Okay, yeah, you sound fine.
Cool.
But for you guys too, like if you guys in the audience, I wanted to say, if you guys have a question when we're talking about these different topics, like, right now we're on verbal de-escalation. If you have a question, just go ahead and ask, because it'd be a good time to ask before we move on to the next topic. So no, Chandler, you haven't gotten in a fight with your girlfriend anytime recently?
No, I'm pretty good at that. Well, I guess that's verbal de-escalation.
Yeah,
I pick and choose my battles.
that's true. But sometimes your battles are chosen for you.
Yeah, sometimes, but I always have the luxury of leaving.
Oh, okay. So Chandler's like, I'm gonna walk out and cool down for 5 minutes, and he doesn't come back for 3 days.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. That's it. No, I'm the youngest one here, and I'd be lying if I said that I was always calm and cool and collected. It's taken me a long time to get to that point to where, like, hey, you know what? It's really not worth it. Like, to actually get to the point where you are, choosing your battles. It's just as you get older, like the way I looked at it is like, as you get older and then you realize your body starts to hurt, you're not as flexible as you were, and you don't recover as fast. Think about, like, if it's a physical altercation, yeah, you might win. But like, I've never been in a fight in my life where I didn't get punched in the face at least once. Win or loss, like, you're gonna get punched in the face, and
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people now haven't been punched in the face ever, and
Yeah.
I don't care how tough you are, it fucking sucks getting punched in the face, like, just right there. And if you're fighting on the street, you have no idea if this person's gonna pull out a knife, gun, and you
Yeah.
could be the baddest motherfucker in the world, but if you're half a second too slow, none of that shit matters. So it's like, is it really worth it? Is this guy calling you a pussy, like, for not fighting him? Is it really worth you possibly getting stabbed or shot or getting your teeth kicked in, or his buddies coming up out of nowhere and you weren't paying attention? And it's not worth it. So it's like you were saying, like, unless that fight is chosen for you, unless somehow you get backed into a corner and the guy is absolutely going to take a swing on you, yeah, then you got to do what you got to do. But it's never worth it. Never fucking worth it. If you let your pride dictate whether or not you're going to get into a fight, that's not an intelligent.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that everyone here, including everyone in the chat, has too much to lose if we get into a fight, right? Everybody we have too much to lose. We're not these young college people anymore. A lot of us are, a little bit older, we're out of college and stuff. And so we have some life experience. We have a little more maturity. Our brains have developed a little bit more. So, fighting for us gets us nowhere unless you are a fighter and that's just kind of lifestyle you want to live, right? But so verbal de-escalation at all times if you can, guys. And again, where do you practice this? Well, it starts within your own household. They could start with your significant other or your kids or your family, and then as you kind of work on that, you get better naturally, and then you could probably handle a stranger or something like that. Now, I want to get back to really quick. The last thing I'm going to say on verbal de-escalation is going back to that gas station scenario, or just a scenario where a person is coming up to you, asking you for money or asking you for help in some sort of way. Just think about this before you become a dick to this person, because we can easily be a dick to these people if we wanted to, right? Especially in LA where there's bums everywhere, especially if you're at a gas station anywhere near the airport, and you have to use a gas station, more than likely there's going to be a couple of bums that are around you. Most of them mind their own business. But before the next time you say you're just rude or mean or have an attitude with this person that's asking you for help or asking you for a couple bucks, just remember this. You don't know what state of mind this person's in. You don't know what this person's been through. You just know that they're in the dumps right now. You don't know if mentally this person is sane or if they're a little insane. You don't know if they're capable of physical harm and violence. You don't know any of these answers. So because what could happen is this person, before he approached you, you could have been the one where he said, you know what? I'm so tired of people not helping me. I'm so tired of people saying no to me. I'm so tired of people, just looking at me like I'm worthless. And he could have made his mind up before he even came up to you. He could have said, the next motherfucker that says no to me, I'm gonna stab him right in the throat. Just think about that. He could have made his mind up already before, or he or she could have made his mind up. The next person that says no to me, or maybe the next person that's mean about it, I'm gonna stab him because I'm so sick of this. So guys, just when you're talking to these people that are down in their lives, there's no reason to be rude to them, because we can easily do that, right? Especially if you're constantly surrounded by that. But there is a better way verbally to say, hey man, like I don't carry any cash on me. I can't help you. I'm in a hurry. I'm sorry. Like, hey, I'm at this gas station all the time. Next time I see you, I'll get a couple bucks for you, right? Give them something, but whatever you do, don't be a dick, because you could be the one that is going to pay for that big time, right? And he's a homeless guy. He's going to run off, right? Or homeless woman. So
There's a lot less to lose than you do.
Yeah, he has a lot less. He has nothing to lose, really. Everything's been taken from him, whether it was, his own doing or whatever. So just keep that in mind, guys. Okay, so moving on from verbal de-escalation. So let's say verbal de-escalation doesn't work and we go hands on with this guy. Damon, you're an EP. You've been in executive protection for a long time. How important is it to have some basic knowledge of like some kind of combatives program or style?
Really important, because a majority of the times you're not even going to have an opportunity to even go for your gun if it ever came to that point. But 9 times out of 10, probably even higher chances of that. But the situations that EP guys deal with don't even resort to you using a weapon. A lot of it is, empty hand tactics, stuff that you don't even need to reach for a gun. I will carry. I'm in a suit because it's too much weight, but I will carry a small expandable baton. And, so that way it gives me a little bit more of an advantage too. If it got to the point where I needed to use an expandable baton for self-defense or defense of my client, then I'll go to that. So I think a lot of times when people think about that sort of job, protecting somebody in general, they usually think like, well, if I just carry a gun, that'll just solve all my problems. But situations, like I said again, like resort to that. Like, how often have all of us, even us 4 here, as much as we spend the time to shoot and get better at it, have we felt like, oh, this is a situation where I needed to go straight to my gun? Outside of obviously military and law enforcement type work or EP work for me, I put my hands on plenty of people, but I there's never, with the exception of maybe one time when I was a police officer, there hasn't been a time where I ever needed to go for my gun during EP. It hasn't happened. I have some of my buddies who I've worked with that did EP that had to draw down on somebody, but that's super rare. And so a lot of times it's all about empty hand tactics, and then after that, depending on what the situation is do you know how to either restrain that individual because you don't have a choice but to continue to control them, or can you do enough to incapacitate them momentarily so that way you can get out of there with your client? So, to do something. So when it comes to the EP work specifically, and particularly if you're thinking of if you don't do executive protection, but you want to think about like, what can I go and learn that is good for me to protect my family? Because obviously, when it comes down to it, if you think about having to get into a fight with somebody, do you really want to get into like a knockdown, dirty, freaking fight? You're tone up with somebody while you got your family there? Not really. You want to hurt them and just deal with this person and then get out of there and take your family with you. When I work with clients, like that's the number one priority. Like I'm not going to stand there and try to duke it out with some dude on the street in my, shoes and freaking khakis. Like this is not going to happen. So, I would say you want to keep everything on your feet if you're trying to be fast about it, and if you know how to, do at least some basic strikes and stuff like that. I mean, that could either be boxing. If you want to be more well-rounded, I would say maybe do some Muay Thai or something like that. The way you can use your fists, feet, knees, and elbows. And if you're really dirty, you can use your forehead and headbutt somebody. Uh, and then after that, if you want to go into like control techniques or some sort of wrist lock, uh, you know, takedowns and that sort of stuff, like if you get into, I don't know, maybe like Hapkido for
Aikido's a good one for that.
was really good. Judo was another really good one, where you can like throw people and that sort of stuff. That's great. And then worst case scenario, if you really had to go to the ground because they're the ones that took you to the ground, then I really like a little bit of jujitsu.
Statistically, most fights do end up on the ground, and that's really because both fighters are inexperienced. If you look at professional fighters or very experienced fighters, they try to avoid the ground at all costs, right? Now in the UFC, you have some guys that are really good at ground and pound, but that's only if they find themselves in that position, right? And so us being unexperienced fighters, we need to try to stay on our toes as much as we can. We need to have the space to our back open as much as we can. Like never kind of rotate yourself where you have a wall 5 feet behind you. You want to always keep the open space behind you. And then just don't go to the ground, because once you go to the ground, you lose complete situational awareness. I mean, you might have lost some of that situational awareness when you're in this little encounter because you're so focused on this guy or girl. But when you're on the ground, that's it. I mean, at that point, you need to find a way to like get out of that, or get to a place where you can, get this person in some kind of arm bar or maybe a choke or something. But even then, you're prone. You're not prone, but even then, you're vulnerable. You're vulnerable to somebody coming in and kicking you in the face. Somebody coming in and while you got your hands preoccupied with this guy, somebody's now, beating on your face or kicking you. So we try to, but in order to do all that, guys, you need to take something. You need to take something. And plus, a mixed martial art or just any martial art does wonders for your physical fitness. It does wonders for your mindset, for your situational awareness. So, if you guys, if you have time and you want to take this serious, then you got to take something, right? Lawrence, going back to your situation with that guy at the gas station, did it ever get like to that point with you guys?
Yeah, and I think that was my fault. It was an ego thing. He threw something at my car, so I came out and kind of argued with him. Could have just driven away,
Yeah.
but I did it, and he swung at me. He swiped my head, and then it just he spit at me, and then he swung at me. So it just I had to knock him down a few times, but he was definitely on something because he just kept getting back up, which is really very disconcerting. I was like, what the hell?
Yeah, I'd rather get punched in the face than get spat on.
Oh yeah, that's disgusting.
Yeah, so then he threw something at your car as you were driving away, and then you were like, oh, hell no, bro.
Yeah,
so then you got out.
I just got the car wash, yeah.
You just got your car washed.
Yeah.
But then you got out and you went after him?
No, I just said, dude, what are you doing, man? Why are you throwing, junk at my car? And then the same thing. He never changed his tune. He was like, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you. He came up and, he swung at me. Well, he spit at me and then swung at me with his iPhone or whatever. He had an iPhone and, hit the side of my head.
But... 12, which one?
What's that?
11 or the 12?
I don't know.
Yeah, 12 Pro Max.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a circus. This whole thing probably took like 3 to 5 minutes because he went into the store and got a bottle and everything. So
yeah,
it was crazy. It ended up being a very expensive night.
Yeah, and so none of that was really your fault. Like him throwing something at your car, not your fault. Although you had to pay for that, right? Your insurance, but we still have deductibles and shit.
Yeah.
But then it could have got a lot worse for you. And and Lawrence already kind of walked away with lessons learned. He was like, next time in retrospect, he probably wouldn't have got out of his car, because he ultimately doesn't know who he's dealing with and what this person's capable of. If this guy is verbally saying he's going to kill you and he is homeless, then there's a good chance he may try to kill you, right? Because of his state of mind or a lack of state of mind. if it's a reasonable person that is just like we are, and he says, I'm going to kill you, then, you know, that could just be a heat of the moment type of thing, right? So it's just constantly assessing your situation, not just the situation at hand, but the situation around you that's evolving. All right, guys, we're going to move on because we need to kind of get to the next three here. All right, so if we're going hand to hand, if we're going hands-on, right, with some kind of combatives or a lack of combatives, and now we're just two people like doing this dance, how important is physical fitness, Chandler?
Oh God, it's incredibly important. Like I said before, most people haven't been punched in the face. It's because most people haven't fight. And I'd say like the first two or three, like I'll say like two major fights you get winded really, really quick. And when you get winded really, really quick, like if you even watch like a long boxing match and look at the power in the punches in round 1, 2, and 3, and then compare that to the power in the punches in the last two rounds. They're gassed, and those are professional fighters that fight for hours, that spar for hours all day long, every single day.
And run and bike and all kinds of stamina, endurance building exercises.
Exactly. For the most part, we are normal people, like we have normal jobs, and I think mostly for guys, every guy thinks they're tougher than the average guy. Every single guy thinks that. But like the guy that you're fighting on the ground at the bar or whatever, because like we said, it's going to go to the ground. That guy thinks the exact same thing, and you have no way of knowing what this guy's experience level is. So physical fitness is incredibly
unless he's got
important.
cauliflower ears, then
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. I posted that yesterday. If you're fucking picking a fight with an old middle-aged man with cauliflower ears, you're not fucking using situational awareness, because that dude's gonna break your neck.
Yeah.
Just pay attention. Physical fitness is incredibly important, and physical fitness is not what every dude thinks is that I'm gonna go to the gym, I'm gonna get fucking jacked.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna be strong as shit, and I've got a badass bench press, and I could squat like 375 and all this crap. That is good and all, but I've seen plenty of big dudes get knocked the fuck out by little dudes. One, they can't take a punch because they've never taken the punch, and they're slow as shit. You're better off in a fight being quick than you are being strong. Like, being strong doesn't stop you from getting hit in the face. And like I said, there's plenty of big dudes with glass jaws, and physical fitness there's so many aspects to it. Yes, lifting weights is incredibly important. But your cardiovascular endurance is incredibly important. Your breathing control is incredibly important. Like, if you can't control your breath, if you can't control your breathing, especially in a fight where more than likely you're going to be holding your breath, you're going to get gassed in seconds, because you're going to be swinging as hard as you can, and you're eventually going to get fucked up.
I mean, that's the whole point of like Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, right? If you guys kind of look into the Gracie family as to where Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu came from, their grandfather basically, started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because he lacked strength. When his older brothers were always whooping his ass, he knew that the only way to beat them was with technique and quickness, right? Because he couldn't outmatch him in strength. But he could outmatch him in technique. And that's why Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is so technical, and you don't have to be strong. You really don't. As long as your technique is good, and as long as you have a little bit of speed or explosive speed, then you could get the advantage on even the biggest guy. And that's what Chandler's talking about. So strength is good because we have to think well balanced. Like, you just want to be a well balanced kind of in your athleticism. You just want to be well balanced. You want to have enough strength where you can pick up your own body weight. So right now I'm like 188. If I can't pick up somebody who's 188, I probably need to add a little bit of strength into my training, right? But also you want to have stamina, endurance. You want to have some explosive speed. right? These are all different little attributes of a well-rounded kind of athlete, or just a person that, you know, trains well. Because like being too strong, but then you get winded when you run half a block down the, or you know, half a block. What good are you?
No.
You look like the Hulk, but you can't even run half the block. What good are you, right? Or if you're like the skinny person that can run for 80 miles, but yet, you know, somebody slaps you and you pass out, like what good are you? Like, so there has to be some balance. You know, and that, and in everyday scenarios is, just imagine you're in the car with your family, you guys get into an accident, and you're conscious, but everybody else is not conscious. They're passed out. You are, and like, you know, worst case scenario, the car starts on fire. Now you're under a time constraint to get every member of your family out of your car. And if you can't even like pick them up or drag them, I mean, God help you, dude. So physical fitness is very important, especially like in the military, like, you know, special forces, you see these guys, they're like bigger and everything. But if they can't pass a PT test, like if they can't run a 3 mile, or if they can't, or a 2 mile, sorry, or if they can't do 100 push-ups or sit-ups, like everybody talks shit, dude. Like you're like this big freaking gorilla, but you can't even do 100 push-ups. Like what's, you know, not that that really means anything, but if you have a bad 2 mile run or a 3 mile run, it's like, come on, man.
You're not like physically fit, you're strong. Like physical fitness is like it's all encompassing thing. I'm fit. No, like there's plenty of aesthetic guys that have really, really nice bodies, and same thing with women that they're not athletes. They look,
Yeah.
you know, there's no function. It's all aesthetic.
Yeah, they're obviously getting show ready or something like that. That doesn't equate to strength anyway, right? Having a ripped physique. You know, so I try to incorporate a little bit of cardio in my, like I go to the gym now, not to get bigger, but just really to maintain. And then naturally I just kind of fluctuate. I go up a couple pounds, I drop a couple pounds. You know, if I'm really like in the gym consistently, I'm probably gonna go up a couple pounds because now I'm putting on like muscle mass, you know. But I was at that point for a while where I was just consistently going to the gym and I wasn't doing any cardio, because when you're in the military for umpteen years and all you do is cardio, you get sick of it. You never want to do cardio again. And these guys can all vouch, right? But then I noticed that I was like, all right, man, you're getting winded pretty quickly. Like you're focusing too much on strength, you know, and you need to get back into some cardio. So I hate running and I hate biking. So I found other methods of cardio that I could enjoy that wouldn't be boring. Because to me, running is boring, you know, and to me, biking is boring, and doing even rowing on a rowing machine is boring, right? I want to do something. I'll push a sled up and down the turf, you know, as fast as I can. And I'll do like 10 sets or something, you know. So I need something else. I'll jump rope. I like that, you know. So find something that can give you some cardio. But if you want to really build stamina and endurance so that you can go the 10 rounds or whatever, then you have no choice but to run, bike, row, stuff like that. All right. I mean, this is important to the point where in combat, people die because they're out of shape. People die because they can't run fast enough. People die because after a 50-meter sprint, they get winded and pass out because they hyperventilate, you know. I mean, it's a serious problem. So if you think that you're above it because of some other aspect of training that you have, because you have a sub-second draw or this and that, you're setting yourself up for failure, guys. Anybody else has anything to add to physical fitness? Okay. So everything that we're talking about requires discipline. If you do not have self-discipline, none of what we're saying right now matters. Not situational awareness, not physical fitness, not verbal de-escalation, not combatives, nothing. All right. None of this is going to matter. Self-discipline, if you lack self-discipline, then it's all for naught. Okay. So moving on from combatives, let's go into medical. Okay. These all kind of tie together. I like how they're tying together. I like that. So like, let's say we got into a fight, right? And somebody gets injured. Hopefully it's not you, but somebody gets injured. Now you have to render medical aid. Lawrence, how important is medical training into you? Because you were there for first aid and buddy aid. You saw what we were doing. How important did you find that stuff?
I mean, that's definitely a skill. I mean, unless you want to just run away and let people die, it's definitely an important skill because you can't just guess in those kind of moments where people are bleeding out. There's not much time. If you don't have the training or the knowledge, I mean, that person can die or your family member can die. So I think it's very important to have some basic knowledge or some awareness of what first aid or treatment for trauma and whatnot should be. And it's definitely a great class for any training clinic or group that offers it. I would really advise everyone to take that because it's so important. We forget that, oh, we're going to do all the damage, but what if the damage happens to you or to someone, that you're with? So
Yeah, we always say, guys, that we always train. When we talk about gun training and firearms training, what are we training? What are we training to do? Like, essentially, we're basically training to take a life. How much time do we put into that sub skill set of taking a life? Some of us put all of our time into it. We put all of our time, money, everything into taking a life. But what is the percentage? If you really think about, what would be the percentage that you had to brandish that gun and actually utilize it and engage somebody and kill somebody or maim them? Now that percentage versus the other percentage of where you have to render medical aid to somebody. You have to apply a tourniquet to stop the bleeding, or you have to put pressure on some kind of wound, or, basically you have to help somebody out. What are the chances, right? I mean, I think it's definitely greater than you ever having to draw that gun. But how much time do we actually invest into medical training? Once a year, maybe, for some of you, once every couple of years. So that's something that we actually took a lot more serious this year. We talk about, what we see all this gun training, but what else is there that we can teach that other people aren't teaching? So we decided, with the help of Silver, who I think is still here, we decided that we want to get into medical training, and we're going to do more of that moving forward. Like, we're going to try to do medical training as 1/3 of our overall curriculum. And we think it's important. Learning how to apply a tourniquet, very important. Learning how to apply, learning how to like if a tourniquet is not enough, or if you have a wound that's in a place where you cannot apply a tourniquet, learning how to pack that wound and then apply a pressure bandage and apply pressure to it. We can get into a little more nitty gritty type of stuff, a little more advanced type stuff like chest seals and, stuff like that. But if you can just learn how to stop the bleeding for someone that's bleeding out, then you've probably done more than most people have ever done or ever could do. Because I think the average human loses 1 pint every 30 seconds. Correct me if I'm wrong, Silver, but I think the average human loses 1 pint of blood every 30 seconds. Or, well, I think it's like 1 to 1 plus. But
Imperial one.
Yeah, but how many pints of blood can we lose before we bleed out? It's not that many. I think it's, what do you say? I think it's like 5 to 7. No, okay, maybe I'm already forgetting. Approximately 1 liter per minute. Yeah, I mean, I think that equates to kind of what I said. How many pints of blood can the average human lose before they bleed out, Silver? So, and this is why this is important. Okay, so 2 liter, you can lose 2 liters before a shock sets in. But this is why medical training is important, because as much as we like to put on medical training, we also have a lot of learning to do ourselves. In fact, that's why the last time I talked to Silver, I was like, hey, the 3 of us want to get certed. We want to start the process. And he was like, that's not easy. And I was like, I don't care. I was like, let's start the journey and get us certified, because we want to be certified medical practitioners, not just a guy with combat experience and 2 guys with combat and executive protection experience. There's a difference there in the level of proficiency in medical training and medical application. And I want to get as good as of a shooter and a tactician that I am. I want to be as good in medical. So if you guys aren't seeking medical training, I mean, you're really cheating yourself, and you're really ignoring a big part or a big chance of something that could occur in your life. That's what you're really doing. You're living in this kind of like little, it's never going to happen to me. It's never going to happen to me. Guys, Damon, what about you?
Definitely agree. You're going to come across medical, maybe a small thing or something, you know, life-saving. You're going to come across those situations way more than you having to go to a gun. It's, think of the most basic civilian level of training you probably want to go do is stop the bleed. That's a huge level up on medical. And then if you can get into some sort of like TCCC version of it, if you can, or well, they have other civilian versions on that as well that you can go to. I got lucky and got a chance to do TCCC, and it was pretty intense. And a majority of that stuff, medications and all that stuff, is something that I would probably never be able to do because I don't have access to the hardcore medications that you learn about in TCCC. But it really opened my eyes to medical training and how important it is. You know, before then I had your standard American Red Cross, first aid, AED, and CPR, which is great too. But as far as the bleeding control stuff, first American Red Cross and American Heart Association, their level of like stop the bleed type stuff is like pretty weak. I mean, at the time, going through the certification with American Red Cross, and this is a long time ago, they were against the whole tourniquet thing. It's like really old knowledge too. So certified in TCCC was not only super fun, but gave me a lot more respect for medical professionals, because those are the people that legitimately save lives on a regular basis, and we're going to be able to do that and not feel hopeless if one of your family members cuts themselves really bad, or you get in a car accident and there's like a major arterial bleed or something like that. If you don't know how to do that, but you carry a gun, then you're wrong, you know.
Absolutely. I mean, so again, guys, we're talking about something that's, I would say, you know, we could say it's equally important to the rest of these, but I mean, other than situational awareness, I think medical is probably the most important thing that we've talked about so far. So again, if you guys are in SoCal, then look forward to some of our medical training that's coming up here this year and next. But if you're anywhere else, then you need to seek it. Just do your due diligence and start with Google, or start with your range. Go to the gun store, go to maybe a local clinic or the hospital, and just ask them, hey, is anybody doing medical training for civilians? Okay, cool. Anything is better than, unless you show up to this class and you see a box of tampons on the table, you may want to freaking walk out. But for the most part, I think, whoever is putting on medical training is probably doing right by you guys. Stay off YouTube for medical training, obviously. All right, so let's, we got one more topic we need to talk about. So the last topic in that other 99%. So far, we've covered situational awareness. We've covered verbal de-escalation. We've covered combatives, physical fitness. We just got done talking about medical. And now let's talk about the last thing, which is just some basic tactical training. Because we're already, remember, the gunfighting and the gun training, that's all the 1%. That's 1%. Right? So we're not going to talk about firearms training, but we are going to talk about some tactical training, because that implies obviously firearms, and I get that, but it's not your typical like handgun accuracy, pistol one. You need to take like some courses that actually teach you some tactics, how to properly utilize cover, how to properly shoot from inside of your vehicle shooting out, or how to get out of a vehicle. How to get out, how to get off the X if you find yourself within one arm's distance from somebody, so you need to take some tactical training. Well, I mean, what do you guys think is some very practical tactical training that people should take, or just that should occur in this training? What do you guys think?
I mean, at the bare minimum, just learning how to use proper cover is really important, because one of the things that we see a lot, even in our live fire courses, not even going into the CQB yet, when we put barricades and then we make students shoot behind barricades, they never use it properly because they've never been taught. So if you get to a situation where you end up having to go, to the gun and you have cover available, you need to be able to utilize that and utilize it properly. And what we always see is overexposure, pretty much almost in every student that's never been properly used or taught to use cover. And if you can at least do that, then you're already kind of getting over the curve there. And then after that, you can go and do I would say like a force course. It's either it involves CQB or not, but just a force the course will allow you to and how other people behave and react, and also allow you to kind of get over I don't know, the fear of having to engage somebody else or be engaged by someone. That kind of goes back into the whole I guess like the combat mindset too. But yeah, I would say proper cover of force and force course, and then I would say like some sort of CQB course, whether it be like a one man or a team CQB.
If you think about you guys may answer this question better than we can when we talk about what is some practical tactical skills that you may need, right? Well, think about your pattern of life. Think about what you do on a daily basis. For most of us, we sit in an office from 9 to 5. Some of us, we're kind of out I'll say we're out in the field, right? Whatever that field is, so we're kind of outdoors or doing something like that. Some of us spend a lot of time in the vehicle, right? So if you think about that, like, what is my pattern of life? Where is the place that I am the most? Where are the places that I frequent the most? What kind of situations do I find myself most in? That may answer the question for you as to what kind of practical tactical training you need. And when I say practical tactical, because we're not talking about like high speed special operations type stuff. We're not even really talking about CQB. We're just talking about some simple basic stuff that'll kind of work to your favor if you have nothing else, like proper cover. We talk about cover versus concealment all the time. What's the difference between cover and concealment? Well, concealment does just that. It conceals you, but it doesn't necessarily give you cover, right? Like if I go hide in the bushes, do I have cover or do I have concealment? I have concealment. I'm only covered because I'm concealed. Makes sense? But the moment that my position is compromised, I'm no longer covered and I'm no longer concealed. Whereas cover is a hard structure, hard wood, concrete, what else? Metal. These things can give you, let me see here. So these things will basically give you, you'll have good cover. I had to get rid of somebody, guys, because he was spamming. You got spammers coming in here. But so these hard structures will actually give you cover. So if a bullet was to hit that, it wouldn't penetrate. Like if the bullet hits the hard wood or the metal or the concrete, it's not going to penetrate. So that is cover versus concealment. Does a hard structure give you concealment? Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. I love that these spammers are coming in here. I feel like these people. I need my moderator. Where's Eric? All right. Anyway, so does cover give you concealment? Yeah, absolutely it does. Up until the moment you compromise yourself and expose yourself, then you're not, you still have cover, but you're no longer concealed. So it's little things like that. Now, if I'm in my office, do I have cover? I don't know. Do you? Maybe take a look around. Is there actual cover in your office? Do you have cover in your vehicle? Because we talk about vehicle tactics all the time. You know, where's the safest place in your vehicle or around your vehicle, guys? Chandler, where's the safest place?
Oh, safest place around your vehicle. Be right behind. You place yourself right behind the engine in your front rotor. So everybody thinks that the engine block is the best place to be. It's not the thickest piece of steel on your vehicle, unless you have an up armored vehicle for work. I don't know why anybody would have an up armored vehicle just cause. But your rotors and your vehicle, even if it's a little Honda Civic, are equivalent to, you know, AR 500 steel, or I think 600 steel, right? Yeah. Your rotors are incredibly thick. They will stop rounds, but mind you, your rotor is only what, 12 inches, maybe? So down low in front of your engine with your rotor, placing your body in line with the rotor and the engine and blading yourself off to where whatever you're engaging or is engaging you is you have the engine and the rotor in between them and you. That is the safest place to be in outside of your vehicle. And then if you obviously can't be in the front of the vehicle, you need to find a way to place as much of your body behind the rear rotor, but you don't have the luxury of an engine block. Um, if you watch, you know, movies where you see cops, they get out of the car and they flip open the door and they stand behind the door with, you know, half of their body behind the window, and there's like that, the door, it doesn't stop rounds. It might stop a weak pistol round if you got lucky, but it's not going to stop a rifle round, and you can't even count on it stopping. Don't
Yeah.
stand behind the doors. Your cars, they're not super sturdy, and cars now, the outside of them are weaker, especially like bumpers and things like that. If you look at bumpers in like an old, like 1970 something Ford F-150, they're those thick steel bumpers that can take a huge dent, and the bumper will maintain its shape. But the bumpers now, most of them are like a carbon fiber with a foam almost buffer in them. So the bumpers and a lot of the cars designed to get destroyed to absorb most of the impact, because car designers aren't making cars to keep you safe from gunfights. They're making cars to keep you safe from other cars. So cars now, you're more likely to have a total on your car, but you'll be less injured after the car accident. So, you know, cars are weaker, you'll be safer. But so if you're talking about bullets, they're just going to pierce right through, because most of the inside of that insulation, it's some sort of foam, almost like styrofoam, just a really thick amount of styrofoam. That's not going to stop a round. It's not going to stop much of anything. You could easily push a knife through a car door.
Yeah.
It's not hard to do.
Yeah.
So
5.56 goes through both doors. Like you
Yeah.
can shoot 5.56 on one side of the car, it will go through the second side of the car and still penetrate a target that's near that door. Lawrence, in a competition, how important is it to learn how to move off of the X that you've created for yourself? Let's say you shot from one location. How important is movement to get to that next location?
I mean, I think that's where a lot of the elite shooters or the top shooters are really how they kind of separate themselves from the other shooters is that you'll find a lot of people with great like trigger speed, but like your JJ Rakazas and like your Shane Coleys, those guys are winning not just because of their trigger control and their trigger speed, it's because they know how to move. And if you watch them compete and how they navigate a course and their stage planning, it's all about their movement. How when they decide to initiate the movement while breaking shots, it's really important to know where you're going, how to position yourself, even as you step into various shooting positions. Like they've already mapped it out. They know how they're going to position their body to hit certain targets and then start engaging the next array. So for competition shooting, I don't know if a lot of people understand this, but that's one of the biggest advantages you can have in developing your competition skills is getting that movement incorporated into your shooting, because that'll really elevate your like competitiveness against other shooters?
Now we do a lot of movement in our level 2 classes because our level 2 is all about introduction to movement. And we do some slow controlled movement, and then we do some very dynamic explosive movement because we need to learn all of them and understand when to use what. And, you know, the way we move tactically doesn't necessarily translate to what they do in competition. But if you think about competition, right? They run to one location, they shoot usually kind of static. They may have some shots on the move from position A to position B, but then they get to position B, they take shots static. Now, if you think of that from a tactical aspect, what it really means is that you've shot from one position, from behind cover, you've compromised yourself, and now you've created an X for yourself on that spot. So you're only good there for so long. Now you have to move from there, right? So could a firefight, a one-on-one firefight, almost look like a stage match in a competition? Yeah, it actually probably could, right? So Chandler, I mean, you've been really focusing more on the tactical training because that's what we do here. But recently, I mean, in the last year, you've gotten into competition. Can you kind of give us your perspective on how movement in competition and tactical and in the tactical world could apply to just in the civilian world, I guess? I don't hear you. We can't hear you.
There we go. No, like Lawrence was saying, movement it's crucial. The ability to basically get behind cover, because there's a lot of cover. It's simulated cover in competition. The difference is there's a lot of positions where you stand to where, like we talk about in CQB. There is the angle you don't want to be in is where you have 5 different angles to cover down on. In competition, that is the exact angle you want. You know, it's that efficiency of motion. So it's easier for me to engage all of these targets if I pick the right angle. It's easier for me to engage these targets if I pick that right angle. I'm exposed to them the whole time, but in competition, the targets don't shoot back. Obviously, in CQB, you want to find the angle where you can pick them off one at a time because you're taking off little bits of pie as you come into a room or, you know, a hallway or what have you. But the movement required to get to those specific spots and understanding and paying attention and, you know, kind of like as you're engaging, being able to use your peripheral vision and kind of see where you're at, because you have to take these large like side steps or really shuffle your feet really fast, then be able to dampen and stop really quickly. Stuff like that in a realistic scenario. Quickly being able to, I always go back to the gas station because it's a crowded area and it's just a crowded area, and look at tons of videos of guys getting robbed. It's at a gas station because it's at such a vulnerable spot. If they're robbing you, they're probably, realistically, one of them probably has a gun. So if you're carrying 2, you may be in a gunfight at that point. But being able to quickly move from the back of your car to the front of your car rather than standing up perfectly straight, being able to bend your knees and like distribute your weight evenly so that you don't fall over and fall out of cover. I mean, that movement is, if you could take a competition shooter and then have them for a whole year only train in tactics, you'd have a badass shooter. If they stop going back to competition, because competition will give you some bad habits for sure. Like even me shooting competition, it's really, really hard to change your mindset. Like, because if you get in the habit of
from proper cover to overexposed for those angles.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, because it feels wrong to just run out blatantly into the open and expose yourself to 23 different targets or whatever. Yeah, but if you can find that middle ground and take the movement of a competition shooter, you could blow through any of these tactical drills. And the drills aren't necessarily, you're not trying to blow through them just to get a good score. You want to implement that explosive movement into something that is somewhat realistic. So
makes sense. Yeah.
If you could just watch videos of them moving, I think you could learn a lot.
I love watching competition shooters move. I mean, that's my favorite part for me. It's not their shooting because I know they're doing that already, But what I really intrigued with when I watch competition is just the way their feet move. You know, what foot they lead off with versus what foot they push off with and what angle. Like that's what really interests me. Damon, I got a very specific question for you regarding moving because, again, coming from the EP world, you have clients. If for these people that are usually out with their families or their kids or their loved ones or whatever, and then for you, that kind of translates to you having to protect your client. How hard is it to? Well, I mean, we already kind of talked about how hard movement is. It's very hard, right? Now, I mean, moving in itself is not that hard, but like moving and shooting is very hard. Now we're going to add another layer to that: moving and shooting and having to protect somebody, right? I don't know if you've ever been in that situation, Damon, but even if you haven't, have you ever been in a situation where you had to get your client out of there and like at any moment you could have brandished that gun or drew that gun? How hard is that to move with the person that you have to protect and maybe have to take shots?
I've been lucky that I haven't been in areas where I've even had to touch my gun. There were situations where I was observing somebody that was acting kind of weird, and obviously that was always in the back of my mind while trying to like overreact and then like just grab my client and like run away when you find out that it was nothing in the first place. And so you know, it's really interesting when you work with clients is because you're trying not to their life and what they've got going on while still trying to do your job. And so there's always this balance between the two. As far as being able to navigate through things like, you know, big crowds and still have yourself as that safety buffer for them, it is really tricky.
Yeah,
So,
I can imagine.
in trying to apply that in like real life type stuff where you know, during our lone operator courses or home defense courses, we talk about as a normal everyday person, where do you place yourself to give yourself the best advantage? You know, if you are the protector of whoever it is that you're with, the best position and placement is for you to be, if you're a right-hander, to that person's right and then just slightly back a little bit. Obviously, as for me, when I'm working, then I drop back to where I'm not even next to the client unless I start going into uh, tighter areas with larger crowds, and I have to be a lot closer at that point because that you really almost have to be, you know, right on top of your client. But you know, obviously, if you're hanging out with somebody, then I'm not going to drop back like an arm's width away or whatever, because then it's freaking weird. And it's like, well, now Damon's standing behind me, and it's like that. You know, as let's say, for example, if you're, you know, you were out with your wife or whatever it is, then you know, you can stand side by side, but you're just maybe like 1 or 2 inches like back just a little bit. And it's not, you know, realistic for you to do that all the time. But when you start sensing that something weird is starting to happen, then that's when you start setting yourself up for success. And what it does is it allows you to not only in your peripheral see the person that you're protecting, but you see everything in front of you. And then if you happen to just glance over to your shoulder, then you don't have that person blocking your view as well because you're slightly just back by a little bit. And so with that person to your left and as a right-handed person and you have a gun on you, it allows you to be able to grab that person with your left hand if you needed to do that, and then go to your gun with your right hand. Most of the time, you know, for us, you know, I'm not going straight to the gun when if I need to evacuate somebody. It's both hands on the individual because that way you have better control of that person. So it's just, the way I explain it is kind of like this accordion effect when I work with clients is you want a little bit more space, and these days that seems to be more the case now. You know, within the last like 10 years, it's changed quite a bit where a lot of stuff that we do now is a little bit more covert or low profile versus being overt and wearing, you know, black suits and ties and earpieces and all that stuff. Like everything we do now is mostly plain clothes where we kind of sort of blend in.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and and then these days, like it's the same thing in real life too. When you're hanging out with your family, whatever it is, you know, it's always want to, you know, be that weird person that's like at the very back, keep eyeballing everybody when you're by yourself, or what, or if you don't have another person that's kind of helping you out or whatever it is. And so, you know, it's this constant accordion effect where depending where it is you're at, you could probably start kind of be on your game a little bit more. if things are a little bit more cool or chill and you don't have to worry about it as much, then yeah, you can act a little more casual. And so um, we do the same thing in our work. So like for example, if I'm walking with a client and we're going through like the mall or something, and they want more space, then I basically trail behind them. And even though I don't like being that far back, if that's what they want, then you just have to do that. And so I drop back and I don't even look like I'm part of that crew. We start walking towards a group of people where I think they're starting to look at us, or we're walking through like a crowd of people, then I start closing up a little bit and get a little closer. And then let's say they're through a department store and they want to look at some, shirts or dresses or whatever they're doing, then I kind of sort of act like I'm not part of the crew and I'm looking at clothes myself, and but I'm still positioning myself in a way that I can see my clients and see what they're doing, but I'm also doing my job at the same time. And then as soon as they take off, I might like give it another beat or two, and then I take off too. And so that way it doesn't bring attention to myself with the client if they're trying not to be, seen or whatever it is. And so all of these skills are great because, when you apply some of these things in real life, but you can be a little more casual about it. I think it puts you at better advantage because now you also know, how much reaction time you need and what kind of footwork you need in order to get between yourself and other people.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is that, if you were to get any sort of training like that, it definitely helps. But as a parent, and I don't have any experience because I don't have any kids, but I watch parents do it, naturally putting themselves between their child and like a weirdo that they might be, walking up on or whatever. If you're walking through a parking lot of Walmart at night and you got your kid with you, is let's say to your right, and that person's acting kind of weird, like right by the entrance, maybe all this could be just somebody that's asking for money. Parents will naturally move their body in between that weird person and their child. And so then you use your own body as a shield in the EP. You basically essentially doing the same thing, but it's a little more technical because then we're thinking about, how am I going to grab this person and move them off the X, and what's the best way for me to utilize footwork to get around them quickly, whatever. Do I need to go for my gun or not, or do I need to grab the person, or maybe I just grab the person I'm protecting, or do I need to actually fight somebody at that point? And so those are things that we think about, and you have that background, and then you go into your real life stuff, things get a little easier. Where as a civilian, they're just like, well, I'm just going to put my body in between, my child and this weirdo. And so being able to put yourself in the proper position is always going to be the bigger advantage. I'm constantly, I naturally do it a lot of times without even thinking about it now, when I'm, with, like my family or somebody, I actually kind of sort of just do that without even thinking about it.
Yeah. It's a little, I mean, it's kind of the same in combat. Like in combat, I've had to cover people, right? But I know that I'm only covering them because they got to get their gun back up, or I'm covering them because they got injured. But I'm never, I was never in a situation where I'm like, putting myself and my body and my gun between or in front of a innocent person. Like I've just never been in that situation. Most of the innocent people that we've had to save or whatever, they've often kind of been inside the house or in a safe place. But I've definitely had to cover for buddies, and sometimes, I mean, not sometimes. There's 2 times where I actually had to physically help a buddy move to cover because he got shot, and so I had to like pick him up and move him to cover. So and then could I shoot? No, I couldn't because I had all this kit on, right? So it's never like in the movies where we're got our buddy and we're dragging him and walking him and we're like sitting there shooting our rifle one. It's just never like that, right? At that point, you have to make a decision. Do I get him to cover or do I take shots? Every situation is different. Here in the States, we don't wear kit, right? Unless it's part of your profession, but more than likely, you're probably just you're either gonna have to take shots because of the proximity of that immediate threat, or maybe they're laying down effective fire on you, so you have to return fire. Or maybe you've made a decision like, you know what, forget shooting. I'm just going to grab my buddy and go, or I'm just going to grab my kid and run, or whatever it is. So now, for those of you guys that don't have family or kids, it's easy. You're by yourself, right? But for most of us, we have a significant other. We have children, I mean, hell, Lawrence has a dog. So how fast is Lawrence going to be with his little puppy? He may have to just pick him up and run. So there's a lot of things to consider, guys. So that's why movement is so important. Movement is a big part of tactical training because, and I said it the other day in my post, movement is almost more important than shooting. Because again, think about it. What are the chances of you having to shoot that gun versus you just having to get out of there for whatever reason, right? Through an exit point, through the kitchen, I don't know, down a hallway, wherever it is. That's probably more important. So learning how to move is obviously very important. All right, guys. So we've covered everything, and we actually did a good job of catching back up time-wise. So thanks, guys. And I hope you guys learned something. Like that. This is what we call the other 99%. That's why, I don't know if anybody else calls it that, but I just came up with that. And the whole 1% to 99%. I don't know. I just started using that. So we decided to call this the 99%. The 99% is, situational awareness. It is verbal de-escalation. It is combatives. It is medical. It is physical fitness. And lastly, it is a little bit of tactical training, basic tactical training. That's the 99%. So if you guys aren't, and I get it, you don't have to spend a majority of your time on the 99%, but if you're spending the majority of your time on just that 1% of drawing your gun and shooting, or just shooting in general, how effective are you? Are you a liability? Are you an asset? Right? I always say that as well. So hopefully you guys learned something. We're going to wrap this up. If you guys had questions, I would assume that you would have asked it by now. But the chat's been a little quiet. I know we had some spammers earlier. I apologize for that. And Erica left, but I did my best to get rid of them. And but if there's any last minute questions, I'll look forward to those here now in the next minute. Otherwise, I'll take a second to wrap it up with the guys here. I appreciate all you guys for being here tonight, giving us a couple hours of your evening. Lawrence, thank you so much for coming on here and kind of sharing your perspective. I mean, Lawrence is not a tactical guy, but Lawrence is definitely a shooter. He does competition. He's been to a ton of our classes. He's definitely kind of progressed in the tactical world for sure. And we love having him out to our classes and stuff. And I wanted him here tonight so he could share, one, the gas station kind of experience, but also just from a person that's not like us, tactical instructors, whatever you want to call us, right? I just wanted but anyway, so thank you, Lawrence, for being here.
Thank you for having me. For
sure. And lastly, for you guys, chat, thank you so much for joining us. It wouldn't be a 2 Alpha training group, live podcast without some technical issues in the beginning. We're going to continue to try to work through those so we can just have one nice smooth start maybe next time. What's that?
It'll happen eventually.
It will eventually happen. We just got to fix a couple of things here. But we don't know how often we do these. Honestly, like it's just me reaching out to Chandler and Daminh. I'm like, hey, are you guys available this night for a podcast? And either they say yes or they say no, right? They just happen to say yes this time. And so we're like, nice, let's do it. But again, thank you so. Wait a minute. Somebody asks, what if you have a crazy person ringing your doorbell in the middle of the night? Oh, like the dude in Vegas? Yeah, you don't open.
Yeah, you don't open the fucking door.
You don't open your door and you call the cops and then you go freaking load your magazine. Right. Anyway, that question kind of threw me off, but again, thank you guys. I know it's kind of late for us East Coast people, for you West Coast people. I mean, it's not, you still got time to kind of relax. I hope you guys have a good night. And then obviously the next time we plan one of these, we'll try to give you guys as much notice as we can. Usually we're kind of about 2 days right now, but we'll try to do like a week out or something and give you guys more notice so you guys can join or schedule it on your, for your nights and then join us here. We may do this on Twitch next time. I don't know, but if you're not on Twitch, please go give us a follow on, or give me a follow on Twitch. It's the same as my Instagram, Kawa_M_official. Go to 2 Alpha Training Group. You're on our YouTube right now. You might as well give us a follow. You might as well subscribe and all that good stuff. And and then obviously on Instagram, you got Chandler Bang and you got Gentleman CCW _CCW and Chandler _Bang. Sorry, because Instagram you have to be very specific because they hate us. So if you don't type it out correctly, you're never going to find us. All
True.
right. And then obviously 2alpha training group. Lawrence is Bored Tiger Pew on Instagram. Give him a follow. And obviously you guys see a lot of him in our classes. And with that, I bid you guys for a good night. Take care, stay safe. And again, thank you for all your interaction and comments, guys. Have a good night. Cheers. All right. We are